How many people do you have signed up for this thing, Rhett?
Last I checked, we had 9.
Cool.
And I'm going to record it, so we will be able to show the world. Hello, everyone. I want to just make sure, first off, that you see, do you see my screen with the presentation? Good.
I do.
And it's full screen. So that's great. Well, thank you, all of our folks that have joined so far. I'm going to wait for a few minutes before we get started. And then we'll make intros and dive in. Jay, yes, raising your hand, allowed to talk. Jay.
Oh, hello. I'm just not sure that I wasn't sure that I was included because I don't see my picture over on the right-hand side.
Oh, well, the way that this is working, Jay, is this is more of a webinar setup. So we're basically we're gonna do a lot of the talking, and then we're gonna open it up so that we can get all the questions and all of that. So Great. At that point, Super. Yeah, you don't have to look at yourself.
Okay, good. Thanks.
But thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome.
Just to set the stage here, I am joined by Nadine Stein, who is currently in Austin, Texas. And Nadine, maybe you can just briefly introduce yourself. We're also joined by Garen Becker, Garen, where are you? You're in Santa Cruz, right?
I'm in Santa Cruz, California. Yep. I work in Orbea in the marketing department. Nadine is going to explain herself, but she's on mute.
Sorry, I kind of muted myself and then I lost my screen. I was like doing the whole tech challenge thing. Clearly you can tell I'm more of a bike person than an IT person, but these days there's such a big combination between great tech on bikes and bikes. So I'm having to learn. But hi, my name is Nadine. I've worked for Orbea for the last 3 years directly, and prior to that I sold Orbea in the shop that I ran in Colorado. I'm currently in Texas, but I'm based out of where our headquarters are in Colorado, near Boulder.
Sweet. And I'm Brett Thurber. My wife and I own and operate the New Wheel in San Francisco. We have 3 locations, one in San Francisco where I'm at today, the other in Marin in Larkspur Landing, and the other in Oakland. And we have a 4th service center in San Francisco as well, which is just down the street from where I'm at today. I think we're going to get started. Thank you everyone who's joining us today. Super excited for this bike. This is the new Denna. It's a brand new model line from Orbea. We're going to go into all the details and then we'll have lots of time for questions at the end. And it's going to be a little bit of a loose format. I'm going to be using Orbea's presentation so we can dive into all the details of what this bike's all about and the tech specs and get into the nitty gritty on the performance, motor performance, battery, and all of that. But then hopefully Nadine and Garen, if you have any added insights, like just unmute and tell everyone. So first, I want to just briefly talk about Orbea, and then maybe you all can say something, add some extra color. We are super happy to be working with Orbea. Orbea is a super cool company on a lot of levels. Not only the product is incredible. We've we started off with mountain bikes. That was how we started with Orbea. So the Wild is long travel Bosch equipped mountain bike, and then the Rise is the Shimano equipped lightweight. Now, when we first got it, was a shorter travel bike. Now it comes in all varieties. The heart of our business is, we have a lot of urban shops. So the new model line from Orbea on the DM was really cool, and then the Kemen is more of a sort of an adventure bike with a lot of commute features, or a commute bike that's an adventure bike, or an adventure bike that's a commute bike. And now we've got the Denna here, and Orbea as a company, I think, is also really interesting. All Orbea bikes are made in Spain. It's a very, very old company, and I'll let maybe Nadine tell exactly how old it is, but they've been building things for a very long time. And the other really cool thing is Orbea is part of the Mondragal cooperative. So it's an employee cooperative that is, the Mondragal is the biggest cooperative in the world. I think all of the businesses, maybe most of the businesses, are in Spain. And it's just a different approach to doing business. And I think you see it in a lot of how the bikes are made and the product and the attention to detail. But they're also, I think, from what I understand, the different approach to business means that a lot of the profits get reinvested back into the company and the people and the product. And you really see it with the level of innovation. Like, I think there's no one that I can see in the industry right now that's doing quite as much interesting stuff as Orbea. So yeah, maybe Nadine, you can add a little bit more. You've been to Orbea's factory, right?
Many times. I have the privilege of going to eat all the jamon. They do a really good cured meats out there, and of course a lot of seafood. It's located, a lot of people ask me where the factory is, and I tell you it's in the hills between the farms, which it quite literally is. And Garen's been there now, so he kind of understands it. But it's northern Spain, so it's on that Mediterranean coastline, weather-wise, which is why you get the real Hawaiian wines down there. It's great climate for growing wines as well. But it is about 30 minutes outside both Bilbao. If you've never looked up Bilbao on the map, there is a Guggenheim Museum there, I think one of the originals. And then San Sebastian, which a lot of us know if we are surfers, right? San Sebastian has a pretty good great place to learn to surf. And it's in Basque country. So 1840 was when Orbea started. It's been around a long time. We initially made our foray into the commercial world of selling guns, right? Before we sold bikes, right? And then, of course, Spanish Civil War happened. Basque versus the Spaniards. We lost. Not allowed to make guns anymore. But what do you do with the tubing factory? Make bikes. Well, initially we made strollers, what we call perambulators. There's a word for you. And then into bikes. So kind of fun. Interesting to know, there's sometimes people pick up the Mondragon cooperative as being this greater entity that owns Orbea. It does not own Orbea. It is almost like a cooperative of cooperatives. How do we put, that's the best way to put that, right? So all these Basque cooperatives formed an association where they would all kind of take care of each other and support each other in their goal to remain employee owned. And so the Mondragon cooperative is this cooperative of cooperatives that Orbea is a part of. We have our own business structure, which has a CEO and a financial controller and all of those things. But then we also have a cooperative board, and a lot of those people work within Orbea and have been with Orbea for many years, and they run the cooperative. And the sole purpose of the cooperative is to leave a legacy for the next generation. And so that ties in with how we do our business, right? We're there to price our product correctly, build something we're proud of, and a legacy that can pass on to the next generation. and we're all cycling mad. So,
Awesome. Thank you. Well, let's dive into the new bike. The Denna is, the focus of the Denna is as a gravel adventure bike. It can be used for lots of different things, but joyful adventure is how it's being billed. It's super lightweight. It's tuned for trail riding or gravel riding, but it has all the performance for super steep stuff. I think it's also going to make a really amazing around town bike, and it's got all the features of a modern gravel bike in terms of like wide tire clearance, and we'll get into all of that in a little bit here. This is sort of the overview. Which we'll go into each part of this. There's sort of the how this bike is designed and the motor performance and what it's capable of. The battery capacity we'll go into. And really important on this is just the level of energy density on it is which is, you know, performance to weight is best of class. We'll go into just sort of the overall cockpit design and integration, comfort features. And then one really cool element of Orbea is the bikes are, because they're made in Spain, there's a lot of personalization options. Not only are they assembled in Spain, but they're also, the frames are painted in Spain. And so you can actually choose your own color scheme if you would like. So we'll go into that. You know, the heart of any e-bike obviously is the motor system. One thing that is very comforting to a shop is knowing that there's a motor system that is solid and well supported, and that spare parts are available, and it's you know, it's a motor company that is going to be there for the long haul. So in our shop, we generally are focused on two motor systems, Bosch and Shimano. The new Denna is built around the Shimano EP8 drive system, but unique to Orbea is the partnership that Orbea has with Shimano, where they are not only just taking an off-the-shelf Shimano motor, but it's programmed to Orbea's specifications, and that's where this RS Gen2 RC comes in, and we'll dive into what that means here. So the RS stands for Rider Synergy. So this is the firmware that Orbea builds for the Shimano motor. It's really designed to be as natural as possible. I don't know if there's any more way to describe it than that, right, Nadine? Is it or Garen?
Yeah, I can jump in there.
Yeah.
One of the things about that's, you said this earlier, is like why that Orbea is one of the only brands innovating right now, and that's pretty much the reason why I'm here. They are one of the only brands in cycling right now doing any innovation. Most manufacturers are taking a motor from Shimano or Bosch, or a host of other smaller, less reputable companies, and incorporating that into their bicycle, and then marketing the bicycle and selling it. That RS little badge you see there on this EP8 motor, that only is found in Orbea. One of the things that like really turned me on to this company was back in the day was that they took a Shimano motor and they like cracked into it. There's employees at Orbea who are solely they're electrical engineers, which is really uncommon for a bike company. Bike companies have mechanical engineers, but they don't have people innovating with tech. So the first Orbea's first foray into this was like cracking into this motor and dialing in the software. So what they did with this EP8 motor initially with the bike called the Rise was really put Orbea on the map here in USA, was that they said, okay, well, this motor is a great motor. It's lightweight, and it's typically used on full power e-bikes. But what if we like broke into this software and tweaked it a little bit and made it detuned the motor a bit for a bit less power, similar torque. That way we can run a smaller battery and we can make a lighter weight platform altogether. So all of a sudden Orbea made this lightweight e-bike that was competing with the other lightweight e-bikes in the class were were using smaller motors, smaller batteries, and had much less torque, much less battery for the same weight. So Orbea kind of like stormed into this market and built this by really modifying this existing motor. And they did it like kind of under the in the shadow of Shimano, and kind of had to prove themselves in their ability to make this really appealing thing out of the Shimano product, kind of asking for forgiveness rather than permission, and it worked. And Shimano is like, holy crap, these guys are. It really kind of put Orbea on the map. So what they've done to this one is it's actually pretty brilliant. It builds on the RS tune from the Rise, but the tunes for the RS Gen2 RC, it means generation 2 rider control. Is that yeah. What we're doing here is adding different tunes for specific uses. So you've got like gravel tune, gravel plus tune, road tune. Orbea has built in a ton of configurable adjustments into this motor that the user can pull out their phone and basically choose the mapping and how they want their bike to operate. Does that help?
Yeah. No, I mean, we just got our demo bike, which is right behind us, and I spent a little bit of time on it. And the thing that I noticed is the smoothness of the assist and how it's really dialed into the type of bike. That's the whole point here, is like, it's not just one size fits all, but this last part here, the RS Gen2. Gen2 just means it now has a maximum torque of 85 Newton meters. Whereas on the first Rise, it was detuned to sort of save the battery. On these now, as battery capacity has grown, they're able to delimit it in a way to give riders the ability to choose how much torque they want without blowing out the battery and having it not last very long. Yeah, Nadine.
Yeah, I like to, when you have people who are uncertain of what that really means for you as the rider, I like to refer to it as elastic. Right, I think of it as an elastic form of riding, right? It's very much determined by the rider, and it bends and shapes to the pressure and the input that you give it, right? And so it's very much more of a real feel for your purist riders, right? So that they don't feel like they're on some sort of thing that's taken away the joy of riding, because it still responds to the cyclist. So
yeah, no, that's
a great way to describe it.
Yeah, totally. When you ride it, that's what you feel. It really feels natural, and it feels dialed into what this bike is for. We'll get into a moment how you can change that if you want. If you want to make it rip in urban commuting, you can do that. But with this road control setup, it's dialed in for trail riding. They have two custom profiles, Gravel and Gravel Plus, which you can switch on your phone once you connect your bike. Within each ride profile, well, first off, this shows you kind of what's happening in each profile. So LV1, LV2, LV3 is just the assist levels. So LV1 is what you could call eco, LV2 is trail, and LV3 is boost. And so you can see, with rider input, the curve goes up, and in gravel mode, it's going to max out at about 42 Newton meters. And really important is this carryover, the short carryover. That just means that the motor doesn't kind of continue assisting between your pedal strokes too much. It has to do it a little bit to make it feel smooth, but if it's too long, it starts feeling more like a cadence sensed bike than a torque sensed dialed in bike. So especially if you're in technical riding, if it's too long, the motor is going to kind of take you off the side of the hill potentially if it was in the extreme condition. So you want it to be really dialed into what you're doing when you're pedaling. And then let's say you want to ride what they're saying here is looser surfaces, where you want more torque and a lower cadence. Then you would choose the GR Plus mode. And then in the highest assist level, you're getting up to about 56 Newton meters of torque, which for trail riding is just perfect. Like, you're not trying to go up the hill at 28 miles an hour. You're just trying to, that doesn't make sense. within each of those assist levels, or once you set your profile, then you've got your assist levels, which you can select on the bike. And this kind of gives you a general idea of what each one of those works out to. So in the GR profile, you can see Eco's very, very minimal assist. It's you're doing most of the work. And in boost mode, it's going to be a little bit punchier. And then in the GR Plus profile, all of those levels have been sort of shifted up a little bit. I think the really cool thing that we've been playing around with is just what you can do on the back end. So you can change all of this. So you can make the GR Plus boost mode more boosty. And I think what we're probably going to end up doing on our demo is making the boost mode more assist, so you can actually like see what it on the top end what it's capable of, because that's always the questions, like especially when you're comparing against a lot of these lighter weight e-bikes that other brands manufacture, where they're frankly just a lot lower torque. You just don't know until you know. And if you try this Denna in trail mode, it's going to feel very similar to some of these lower torque motors, or even in boost mode. But if you dial that up, it's like night and day.
Yeah, I think something to note is that, yeah, the power is there, and Orbea's, it's funny because Orbea's done a lot of work in detuning the motor rather than tuning it up. But you don't, it's an 85 Newton meter motor. This is a common motor found on like some of the nicest mountain bikes out there. So it's all the torque you could ever really ask for. When you apply that kind of torque to a bike with a 50 C tire or smaller, you can't get the power to the ground. So it just spins and spins and spins because it has so much torque. That's why you see these assist start levels are quite low, because when you're starting on a hill and you start to go to pedal and you have a rather slick, rather skinny tire and you're on anything but pavement, the bike just wants to spin out and it's unrideable. But on the flip side, it's really nice to know that you have that power. Like for me, my personal use on a bike like this is actually mostly road, like ripping around town, going from point A to point B. It's not a specifically gravel bike, but it's just one that you want to be able to blast around town on really fast. And with all that torque, 85 Newton meters at 28 mile per hour speed limit, like it's a pretty wild experience to do that. So,
well, that sort of ties in with the name though, right, Karen? Because we all know that the word Denna, D-E-N-N-A, is a Basque word. And what's the translation? Everything. Means everything.
You don't speak Basque, Karen?
I don't speak Basque, sorry. I'm learning.
I don't know if we'll ever get that one right. I'm still struggling with Spanish, but at least I learned that Orbea has a funny way of naming their bikes for the youth, and I think it's quite appropriate in this case because it can be what you want it to be. It's a great bike.
So gravel geometry. So this is just talking about sort of how this bike is set up. It's got a longer reach and a shorter stem than than like a traditional road bike would be. So you just have very good control on loose gravel with really great handling characteristics. I think this is basically saying all the same stuff. I don't know if there's anything more that we would want to add to characteristics. Definitely when you test ride it, and I'll go at the end about where we have one demo bike right now. We have more coming, but the demo bike is going to move to the different stores. So on a rotation. So it's in San Francisco right now, but I'll go over when it's going to be in each location. But you should definitely take it out on some of the loose gravel roads we have, even in San Francisco, actually. The weight is remarkable on this bike. I don't know if there's a slide that's going to go into this, but there's one thing about the weight, but the other thing is how the weight is distributed. So the way that the battery is a custom battery that Orbea manufactures, that is paired and tied in with the Shimano system, and it's designed to be, the weight is as low as possible and as over the front wheel as possible. And you feel that in the bike. You almost can't even notice all of that extra weight that comes from the motor system. And so even though that this motor is a full power motor, what's the weight, Nadine, on there's a number of different spec levels, but I think the base level model is 32 pounds?
You know, I'm terrible because I work in kilograms.
Yeah,
But
okay.
the weight on this bike is around 13.1 kilograms, which if you translate that, and that's like we work on a medium large sizing when we do our weight estimations, right? Or for you guys, but it's around 13.1 kilograms, which I think is about 29 pounds.
Yeah, 28.88 pounds.
Yeah. So my quick translation in my head. But what I can tell you is that for me, as a little blonde old lady, I can pick this bike up really easily and put it on a table. No problem. 2 hands, bend my knees so I don't mess my back up.
Yeah, it's lighter than my non-E mountain bikes that I ride all the time. So it's lighter than, that's pretty light. And also, actually, just on that note, we're talking about up low 30s for a lot of these other what we call SL road bikes. So like I'm not going to name names, but like some of these Fazua powered or Brose powered lightweight urban bikes on the market are lower torque, smaller battery, more weight. Pretty interesting stuff. It's something that really came to light with the Orbea Rise. It was like, whoa, the bike actually has more torque and a bigger battery, but it is lower weight than a lot of the competitors. So
as far as I know, without naming any names, we are the second lightest bike, but with the biggest motor on the market in this category right now. And the weight difference is minimal, but the power difference is significant.
Yeah, and all I can say in terms of motor performance is like, it's nice to have it. You may not use it, but it's nice to have it. But it also, when you don't have it, it's very noticeable. It can feel a little gutless. And, in the past, you kind of have to make this choice when you're purchasing, like, oh, am I going to give this up for good? And you don't have to do that on this bike.
Yeah, no trade-offs, right?
No trade-offs. Another key thing on any self-respecting gravel bike these days is wide tire clearance. So you can fit up to a 50C tire, and you can actually add fenders as well. I don't know if you can do that with the 50C tire.
When you put a fender on, you're going to go to a 45.
Okay, great. That makes sense. But up to 50C without a fender. So let's talk about battery. So this is a custom 420 watt hour battery, 1.95 kilowatt or kilograms in pounds is, let's see here. I'll tell you in a sec once it does the math. 4.3 pounds. It's shaped specifically for the in tube, and as you can see, I mean, you can hardly tell that there's a battery in here. I don't know. You almost wouldn't know it unless you kind of look down at the motor casing at the bottom. There's also an optional 210 watt hour range extender battery. That's really cool that you can just pop this on and give you like a 50% boost in range. And you could bring multiples if you wanted to go on a really long ride, and they're very lightweight. They stow really nicely. If you're riding, if you're, let's say you're riding around town mostly, and it's fine to charge at the end of the day or every couple days, you would not need a range extender. But you want to go on a longer adventure, like out to the headlands or whatever, then you bring your range extender with you for those weekend trips.
And it does fit in a bottle cage holder on the down tube.
And so it would fit down here.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's any
tube,
photos
right?
of that.
The C tube, yeah.
So it's going to fit here, and then there's a cable that plugs into the charge port on the bike, and then it becomes one battery. And it's compact enough
that if you're running a frame bag under your top tube, that it won't compromise the frame bag. So if you're carrying
really
gear
cool.
on that frame is nice because it will fit where that bottle cage holder would be, and it's about the size of bottle cage.
And you're not using it, it just, then you have a bottle cage, right? Yeah. There is a high density cell technology in this that allows for that much performance with that low of weight in that small of a package. 5.8 amp hour cells. You know, there's used to be 18650 cells, which is 18 millimeters by 650 millimeters. I believe these are 21, what is it, 21700s, something like this. It's a bigger overall cell, but just much higher density. And this is, as far as I know, this is the highest density cell that you can get these days. Battery capacities, it's funny because people ask, like, you know, what's the number one thing that's changed over the years? And it actually hasn't historically been the batteries. It's been more the motors more than anything else. Since, you know, we started 15 years ago selling e-bikes, and it was the motor really that, like, the battery capacities 15 years ago on our earliest bikes were like, you know, they were 400 watt hour batteries, and it was not amazing. But the thing that has accelerated really quickly in the last 15 years has been the motor technology. It takes a long time for battery cell technology to improve. It's slow and steady, but we're now starting to see, we're getting to a place where there are big improvements, and it just means you can build really lightweight bikes that don't compromise. And so they're quoting 3,500 meters of climbing, which is 11,000 feet. And that's, I don't know if that's what profile that's in, but I kind of like that way of understanding because we get questions about range all the time, but you think about it more in terms of climbing, especially for a gravel bike or a mountain bike, it makes a whole lot of sense. So I would imagine in like the non-plus profile, you're going to get about 11,000 feet of climbing for an average rider. That's what they're quoting here.
Yeah, and there's just a lot of, like, without a lot of background information, we could never stand behind a number like that. So even me, I work there and I don't know who wrote that. So average rider, what if it's Joseba? Joseba is the product manager for Road for Orbea. He is an ex-tour athlete. So, like, you know,
he's going to get 15,000.
Yeah, I weigh way more than him and I pedal softer. So,
but also it's like, how many times do you start, right? Because every time you start up, that takes a little more power. You're riding into a headwind. There's so many variables that it's like asking someone how long a piece of string is. It's really hard to, but I do like this way of calculating because I think it's a more accurate way, and it reassures a lot of people about range anxiety.
Yeah. And one last thing, this, along with what I said earlier with innovation, like, just if in case no one knows, a company making their own batteries is actually quite rare in this industry. Again, like, people, you know, it's pretty common for mountain bike manufacturers. I'm looking at a wall of them right now that, oh, cool, it's a Bosch bike. That means it's a Bosch battery. Shimano bike, that means it's a Shimano 630 battery, or a battery that they bought from someone and put in their bike. It's really quite uncommon for a manufacturer to be making their own batteries, that they encase, that they can design their own battery shape, which means they can design their tube structure, but also to make their own range extender. Also very, very, very uncommon, if not non-existent outside of this brand. It's pretty unique.
And what's kind of cool about this one, Brett, is this is the same range extender that you can use on your 2025 Rise, right? So if you already own one for your Rise and you pick the day you're going to go ride your gravel bike, right, you can take that range extender, put it in your jersey or your back pocket and take it along. Same range extender.
Yeah, that's really cool. The frame, where are the frames made? Because I know the aluminum frames are made in Portugal, right? But the carbon frames are made elsewhere.
They're made in China.
Yeah.
Well, it could be Vietnam, depending on the model and depending on the level of carbon. But essentially, every mass-produced carbon bike is going to be made in one of 3 Asian countries: Vietnam, Thailand, or China, and that's where we make ours. Difference between Orbea is we make them in a factory that is exclusive to Orbea, but also that they're shipped from those factories unassembled and raw into Spain, where they are made into finished goods. So like, it's not something that Orbea is hiding. It's just that the bikes, since they go from being unfinished raw parts to finished goods in Spain, we can get around any of this like Asian manufacturing because it's all done.
Mm-hmm. Oh, got it. Okay. Can either of you speak to this sort of how the carbon layup is improving the ride characteristics?
Me or you, Nadine?
All right. What you got on this one, Garen?
Oh, well, without speaking exclusively to Denna, if we're talking about how carbon fiber bikes are laid up, what people say when we say tuned for, say, compliance or tuned for stiffness, this frame, before it took the form that you can see here, was started as a bunch of hundreds of individually cut out pieces of carbon fiber and delivered from probably a freezer where it was stored because it's pre-impregnated with this epoxy to the production floor where the bike was wrapped around what they call mandrels and taken shape and put into a mold before it was baked in an oven and took its current form as a solid piece of laminate. But what they mean when we talk about tuning carbon for compliance and ride characteristics, all that is the result of testing. So a lot of bike manufacturers, a lot of bike manufacturers don't have engineers. They have designers. The designer is responsible for industrial design, the look and feel of the product. What they'll do is they'll design a frame in CAD. They will say, okay, that's how it's going to look. Good. Okay, everyone like it? Great. Send it to the factory. The factory is then responsible for building the form, the bike. The difference between a company like Orbea with 850 employees working in that Basque Country factory alone is that there are engineers in there that are responsible for how that carbon is laid up. So if you don't have an engineer responsible for this stuff, the factory is just going to make the bike thick enough so it's not going to break. And a lot of these bikes, when they're made like that, they ride pretty like wooden. They ride stiff, dead, without a lot of spring and life. If you're paying attention to how those pieces of laminate are put together and how many are, how they are orientated and how many are laid in these sort of these horizontal flexing parts of the structure and how many are laid in these vertical lateral parts of the structure, that's how you can tune a bike to ride with some compliance or essentially ask it to be stiff where you want it to be or flexy where you want it to be. And that's the beauty of carbon fiber. It's not a tube structure. It's not all one thickness. So if you have machines like Orbea does, you can make, say, you can create the ID of this bike. You can create the mold. So we all know what the outside of this bike will look like. But then from that point on, you can do this 20 different ways in that same mold by adjusting the number of layers of carbon in certain areas, what kind of carbon you're using in those certain areas, how much overlap there is between the two pieces of carbon. There's infinite ways that you can make a bike's ride quality inside of a mold. So that's the thing about carbon fiber is like it's not all created equal, right? It's like you cut some of these bikes open and like historically you find like Chinese newspapers and styrofoam and whatever else it could be in there. And that's what differentiates a premium company from the run of the mill.
And you can see it on the frame too. And I will attest to the ride quality of the bike. Like it doesn't, it's pretty remarkable. I haven't put it through all of its paces yet, but from what I've ridden so far, it's noticeably comfortable. The details, you can see it. You can see it in these pictures, but you can see it on the frame itself. There's a lot of changing depths, and that's all what Garen is talking about. If for those who are not familiar, Mayo is my Orbea, and that's Orbea's customization program. So on many of their bikes, all of their bikes, there's some customization option. So you're not just getting a one size fits all production line bike. You can choose components, and then we'll go into the color options as well. But on the Denna, you can choose your handlebars, you can choose stem, seat post, tires, and wheels. I don't believe you can pick fenders from on the carbon models. We can add fenders afterwards, but I don't know if that's.
I think there is an option for fenders in the Mayo Light configuration. If it's not there yet, it's still coming. It may just be that we don't have them available to customize your bike with right now. Often those options won't appear if they're not available in the near future. So, or they'll be grayed out. Garen, do you know how long we've been offering Mayo for?
As long as my conscious of Orbea has been, we've offered Mayo.
Right, and we don't charge extra for paint, right? And we never have, right? Because I know you're seeing a lot of people introduce, I believe you can now do a My Canyon. And Trek has had Project One, but those you pay a premium for the additional paint charges. For us, we haven't changed the program. It has remained the same since we started it, and there is no extra charge for customization of paint. You will pay a different price for component changes where there is a value difference in that component. The other thing to note on any bike that Orbea makes and sells into the US is that every single bike that we sell into the US can be customized in some form or another. So not all of them have paint options, but every single one of them has the opportunity for you to change some ergonomic issues that you may need to be adjusted for your fit and for your comfort.
No, it's really cool. I mean, the whole at a bike at this price, no matter what, I think, we've had a lot of success with Orbea and Reese Muller on being able to do all this customization, because if you're gonna spend the money, might as well get it what you want instead of what the product manager decided it was going to be. So it's super cool. There's a number of different levels. So what we're talking about here is the Denna carbon line. All of Orbea's, the carbon line of bikes are the ones that you can custom paint. That's the case across the board. So and there's a number of different models available. The higher end models all are Di2, which is Shimano's electronic shifting system. And on the Di2 bikes, you can also adjust your assist level from the brake lever, which I think is really cool. Our demo bike is not Di2, so you're gonna set your assist here at the right at the Shimano unit here at your handlebar. But if you get a Di2 version of this bike, it's a little bit more ergonomically satisfying to be able to just adjust the assist right there at the paddle. Mounting points, there are extra mounting points for fenders, and there's also mounting points for bags, maybe soon to come. I don't know. We'll see.
There is an Orbea bag that will be coming, but that also will work with the Wolf Tooth component slide that you could run any component that would fit onto that slide attachment that's available.
Okay, no, that's great.
That, and there's about a gazillion companies making custom bags. I was just in Sedona, Arizona at a demo event, and there's like 3 or 4 companies just there offering custom bags. So design your ride.
Lots of options. Design your ride. So this is the call out. I guess we're not going to go into all the details on the paint, but again, you can get your Denna custom painted to your liking. These are the European price lines. There's the one thing to note in terms of terminology here is the higher the number, the lower the number, the higher the spec. And if the number is uneven, so the even numbers are all Shimano and uneven, so 31 is going to be SRAM. And I is electronic and E is electronic too, but SRAM electronic is E and Shimano electronic is I. So all the pricing is up on our website as well. So you can go on there and check it out in US dollars. Our demo bike is the Denna M30 to start. But yeah, so there's a lot of options there. There's 2 stock color options. Remind me of the names on these colors. We've got.
You know, it's that.
Let me see.
That champagne one.
I got it. It's escape
yeah.
green gloss with a foggy matte. It's this green one here on the looker's left. On the right-hand side of the screen, that is your nickel matte with carbon raw gloss. And then there's also custom.
Yeah, and the foggy green has a metallic finish in it and almost like some tiny little tiny little gray splotches. It's very pretty. It's really a jade green. It's beautiful. And the nickel is a slightly more platinum variant on our Desert Rose that you saw on the Rise.
Yeah, there's a sparkle on it, on this blue bike as well. A clear coat with a sparkle underneath.
Yeah, it's so
Very
hard to
nice
have
looking.
photos do colors justice, right? It's always the most challenging part for us.
Yeah. So that's the presentation. I am, unless there's anything to add from you, Nadine and Garen, we can open up for questions.
Yeah, I see we have one question in the Q&A section already.
Okay.
There's a good one too. That's a good question.
It is a good one. Yeah, it's a great question.
I'll do it. I'll offer part of that.
Yeah.
The question is, the new wheel has done such great work in establishing and supporting the bike as transportation, so it's bewildering to see more road bike styles. Why would you put a drop bar handlebar on an e-bike? That's the question I'll answer. Because there's a massive, massive market for it. There's a lot of people who have been riding bicycles all their lives, road bicycles in particular, and as they get older, or as their pals move on to e-bikes, they want to be able to keep up. Here, where I live in Santa Cruz, I was just down in Aptos, which is South County, last week, and I saw a group of probably, I'm going to say 25 to 30 riders, all on electric drop bar bikes. Most of them specialized Creos, a couple of Treks, and I thought, holy crap, there is a market. It's a big market of people who are looking to ride the distances and speeds that they may have been able to in the earlier years in their lives, and now this is the next thing for them. The other people who ride these a lot are like, well, people like me. I still ride. I'm looking over here. I got an Orca. That's a I don't know, 14-pound road bike or something like that. But on occasion, I like to go a little faster and make it a little easier on my off days.
I would also add, I think it's fundamentally, there's also just it's a hand position question too. Like there is, like Garen mentioned, we have a lot of customers. If you're used to riding a road bike, and one of the biggest segments now in what used to be road is now gravel, just the hand position alone is like something that you don't want to give up. I also I ride I ride flat bar bikes, but having so I don't have as much experience with the drop bar positioning, but that's one key thing. It's just a ride position. I think in this bike also, gravel is just it's just a whole other sort of world, and again, since this bike is called everything in Basque, it isn't a one-trick pony, and it's not. The other point about speed, I wouldn't say this bike is like any. I mean, it's a quick bike because it's light and it's nimble, but it isn't like it's not like a rad power or something with, you know, it's very light, it's nimble, it's really like a normal bike. The assist you'll see when you ride it is extremely dialed in and smooth and in control. I think there will be some riders that are commuting on it. Actually, probably will be the majority of the folks who buy it from us will be using it for commuting. I think we had a hand raised. David, do you well, there's a comment from Steve about drop bar. Steve, if you want, I can allow you to talk here if you're open to it.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I just make a quick comment about it to add to what you guys have said. As Brett knows, I've ridden a drop bar bike from the new wheel since 2018. I'm 68 and I can still do the climbs around here. I can still climb up Mount Tam on my regular carbon road bike, but my hip and my back then don't want to get back on my bike for 3 days, particularly my left hip. So I could get a hip replacement, or I can ride an e-bike. And I have found also when I have problems with my back and I have to stay off the bike for a few days, I can easily work back because I can make the ride easy on day one and a little harder on day two, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I've said to you, Brett, many times, if I wanted to go back to work, I would try to get a job in marketing. I'm a retired physician, but I tried to get a job in marketing for a road e-bike company to try to convince all these yahoos out there that these things are unbelievable as you get older, just to be able to stay on the bike and ride. And I just close with saying one thing: three times I've had a really strong e-biker, a really strong road biker that I've chased up a hill at the top say, wow, what is that bike you're riding? And in those 3 instances, I've said, here, try it. And every single one of them have come back and gone, oh my God. So anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you. Okay, there's a question. Can you change out the drop handlebars for an upright handlebar? And by upright, do you mean there's 2 ways to do upright? We can do a flat bar. So there's flat bar upright, and there's also like changing the stem or the handlebar to be more upright. I think you're probably thinking more of like a flat bar.
So we don't offer that option on this model, right? You have the DM, which would be more towards that sort of market. But you know, if you go with the SRAM model and want to do that aftermarket within your store with your local bike shop, I'm sure there is a way to make that happen, right? Just changing your shifters and how that works. I think it'd probably be easiest with a SRAM bike if you were intending to make that switch out, but it's not something we're offering as a brand. I also wanted to answer David's question because I was in that website working with our team in the office just last week. David asks about the e-bike on the California list of bikes. And at the time that list initially came out, we were under embargo on Denna, and so we couldn't add it to the list. It is something we're working on adding currently.
Great. Just one other point. I think the reason Nadine is recommending the SRAM bikes for the flat bar conversion would be it's wireless shifting on the SRAM bike. So it's a lot lower labor cost to change out a wireless shifting bike versus a wired.
They're both. The Shimano bikes are wireless too, some of these, but the SRAM, one of SRAM's sort of wonderful little benefits is that SRAM's components all talk to each other. So like if you want to run a SRAM, this road derailleur that comes with this bike, and you want to run a mountain bike shifter, you could just pair those two and they'll talk to each other. Whereas Shimano, that might be a little more difficult. But also, like, to elaborate on that, if you look at these drop bar levers, you know, those they have what they call hoods. That's kind of where your hands sit in when you're in your most casual and your most common riding position. And then the shifting is integrated in them. If you wanted to switch to a flat bar, those levers just wouldn't work. You'd have to move. So you'd be switching your handlebar itself, and you'd be switching your brake levers because those are different, and then you'd be switching your shifters. So that's why Brett's saying it's easier with SRAM, because all that stuff's compatible.
Sorry, and there
Hopefully
was
down the
one
road.
other, yeah, there was one other thing David asked, and that was about integrated lighting on the Denna, which we don't offer, and it needs to be part of the bike to add it to the e-bike incentive program. So the gain is currently being added to that. The Denna does not have an integrated light currently, because I believe California law wants it to operate off the same battery as the motor. Whether we'll add that at a later point, I'm not 100% sure, but something for us to take back to the production team, which we most certainly will do.
And for the record, there are options. Shimano has, we don't offer it from the factory, but there is a port on that Shimano motor. You can power your lights from that motor, but we just don't have it built in. Because last thing, sorry. And for the record, like, we don't have it built in because there's a bike called the Kemen, there's a bike called the DM in our lineup that are much more driven towards like your urban atmosphere, right? These are bikes that you roll them out of the new wheel and it's got a front light, a rear light, everything's charged in from the battery, from the central battery, and everything is working as one big system. The customer for Denna is actually a performance customer, and a lot of these customers, like myself, for this bike, I'm not looking for that integration. I'm looking for a lightweight performance bicycle that's I wouldn't really want to carry all those lights and urban utility around with me on a ride like I'm taking the Denna on. So that's why it doesn't have them.
Yeah, I think we've definitely given the feedback that there's room for a flat bar version of this bike, big time, that is light. Hopefully Orbea will bring us something.
I mean, I've had a lingering cough.
Well,
we'll see.
You know, perhaps we'll have another bike for that category of the market, because that's something we do really well. And then Jay asked us about charging on a 120 and a 240 source. It just depends on the charging unit that you use. If we ship these bikes in Europe, it comes with what's needed for that environment. And if we ship them in the US, it ships with the charger that's for that environment. But it's in essence the same motor and battery. So it's just about making sure you're using the correct power source.
Is the charger switchable between? I'll look real quick. I think it might be. It might be a
plug-in point.
it is.
Yep.
The charger is 110 to 240.
You just need to adjust the kettle cord portion. That kettle cord, the 2-pin, that you just switch out for where you're charging it.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for the questions. Any other last questions before we wrap here?
I wanted to add one more note on this, because someone raised the gain. And the Denna and the gain are two completely different power delivery systems for two completely different ride concepts, ride philosophies, right? So it's important that you qualify who the rider is to make sure we get them on the right bike. But other than that, they're both fantastic bikes for what they do.
Yeah, I think the Denna, we've been a little picky in terms of what we bring in and stock, and it's generally we generally are strongest when the motor assist is working really strong for our Bay Area customers and hills, because you can always dial down the assist as you can on the Denna, but dialing it up if it can't do it, it's not possible. So that's why we're super excited for the Denna, because it does it in the way that we know it needs to be done, and for most folks riding in this crazy hilly terrain we've got around here. Steve, I'm going to allow you to talk here. Thanks for raising your hand.
Okay, yeah, just one last quick question. If you said it up front, I missed it. When do you anticipate that these will be in, reasonable supply so that an order would turn around fairly quickly? And the second part of that question is, if one did order a custom paint job, how long does that add to the delivery time?
So we have these shipping out to dealers currently. So dealers that pre-season them are receiving orders of them right now. So you will start to see them across the US. When you order a Mayo, it takes a full 90 to 120 days from the day you enter the design until your bike will leave the factory. And that bike is custom built. It is hand painted. It is hand inspected. It is hand decaled and goes through various QC steps before it ships out. And so there is a great deal of care and attention put into that process.
So yes, Steve, on our end, we have some spec levels pre-ordered, but we would want to, like, for a custom, like, for if we didn't have it already ordered, we would want to, work with you to figure out exactly which level we want, and then on Orbea's, when we look at this together on Orbea's side, it will give us an estimated production date, which can sometimes change. We've had working on that. Sometimes it looks one way, and it'll get pushed out a little bit if the frame's not showing up on time. But
yeah, right. So I think that's why, like, the safest thing for you to work with any customers, and that we tell you with confidence, is that from the day you enter the design on a Mayo, 90 to 120 days.
Yeah. But if you take a standard bike without changing the color, and you just tweak a few specs,
components, about 30 days. It's around 30 days in that case, because we don't take a bike out of a box and change components on it. It becomes a whole new order, and it takes us 30 days to produce that bike.
Yeah.
And anything that's carbon is hand painted in our factory. Anything that is full suspension is also hand painted.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Steve? If not, just let us know. And, we're, if you have any other questions, follow-up questions. Oh, Steve, yep.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I'll be quick. You probably said this when you were talking about the custom piece, but I had to go out because my dog was going crazy. If you just want a solid color, is there a palette of choices that one can choose from, or how does that work? Not a pattern or anything, just a different color than the two that you're talking about now.
That's what I was going to suggest. I was going to suggest to everyone on here, if you haven't done this, even if you're not in the market, I suggest it. My kid and I we do it every night. Go to the Orbea website, pick up the Denna, and go to the model you like, and then you can hit customize, and it'll take you to another web page. And you'll be able to configure, there's like 1 million options or something, that you'll be able to configure any color you want, base color. You can do gloss, matte, you can change the logo color. I mean, you can put your name on it. You can do anything you want.
Okay.
Which is very, very, very unique in this business, especially for $0.
Perfect.
But it does
take
you bring 120 days, so it's going to take some time.
Sure.
And then, Steve, you bring your code in once you've come up with your beautiful design. Bring the code in so we know what we can reproduce, and we don't have to try to pick all the same colors.
Got it.
Great. That black one, I could just sign off right there. That looks pretty good.
I don't know that Orbea makes any plain black bikes, right? That are just like plain black anywhere.
Yeah, we had a customer who worked for
I remember
Apple.
this conversation.
Yeah, and he just wanted it as clean as possible. So we did a Mayo Orbea Wild for him. That's basically a black bike.
But he wanted the best of everything, but he wanted to downgrade the suspension so it was black, which was kind of crazy. I was like,
this is Apple.
It was interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see how you can do all sorts of really cool things. Steve, if you want a pink bike, we can make it happen. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Nadine, Garen, everyone who joined. And if you have any other questions, feel free to just, send us an email, info@newwheel.net, and call us. We're open 6 days a week in San Francisco and Marin, and 5 days in Oakland. And we will get your questions answered.
Brett, thanks for making these things happen. This is great. And also for I don't know who's on the call, but thanks for showing up. It warms my heart to know that people care enough to pop in for a webinar like this. There's more bike geeks out there than just me. So
me too. I'm so glad. I always feel like I'm in good company in these spaces. And thanks for doing this, Brett. You always do a great job. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this will be recorded too, so we'll send this out. See you later.
Later.